And Marissa spells her name M-A-R-I-S-S-A. My wife spells her name M-A-R-I-S-A, but it started out M-A-R-I-E-S-A until she wouldn't put the E in her name when she went to school. So her mother went down to Winter Haven and had that changed, M-A-R-I-S-A. So let's fast forward about 100 years or so. My wife starts to retire and she goes down to Bartow to get her official birth certificate. And she is still M-A-R-I-E-S-A, much to her chagrin. Even though all through life they've allowed records and driver's license to be misspelled, so I don't know. But
Should be a law against that.
should be a law against that. But I must tell you, she's the light of my life, and she's the cornerstone and the wind beneath my wings. So anything that I've accomplished is because of her. I get to serve you as your sheriff, and that's an honor of a lifetime. I have people say, "Oh, when are you going to run for governor? When are you going to run for president? When are you going to go to Congress?" Let me tell you, folks, all I want to be is the sheriff of Polk County. What little patience I had for that other stuff, I lost a long time ago. But this is a wonderful community. It's a safe community. You wouldn't know that if you watched the evening news. But our crime's at a 47-year low. Our crime in unincorporated Polk County and our service cities went down another 7.3% last year. It's because of Greg Gorick and his colleagues who do a great job to create a partnership with the community. And as a result of that, we can push crime down. Now I must tell you, we've got some laws in place that help us. We've got a 10-20 life law. You rob or use a firearm in the commission of a felony, you get 10 years. You shoot it or discharge it, you get 20. You hit somebody or injure them, you get life. That works. We've got minimum mandatories. It works. It's not just locking up the really bad guys, but it sends a message. I can remember after we implemented the minimum mandatory law, I walked back into the station one day as a colonel and I looked at a guy we arrested for robbing a convenience store with a stick. And I looked at him, I said, "Come on, man, you robbed the store with a stick?" He looked at me and said, "There's no minimum mandatories on a stick." It works. But I can tell you, there's moving foot now with your state legislature and your federal legislators and all across this nation to let more people out of jail, to return the criminals to your neighborhood. And if you don't stand up collectively as a body, as a community, and say, "Time out, we've got a forgiving criminal justice system. Do we need to tweak it? Sure, we always need to tweak and improve. We absolutely need to do that. But if they break down the cornerstones that got us this low crime rate, you can understand what's going to occur. It's going to go back to the way it was. When I first got into law enforcement in the early 70s, we could arrest a guy for robbing a convenience store. They did often with a gun. Every night we had convenience store robberies with a gun someplace. They'd send him away to prison. He'd get 10 years because he shot up the store, didn't kill anybody. And in 20 months, 22 months, I was arresting him again. And I go, "What are you doing here?" He said, "I got out on parole for good behavior." And just how the heck do you misbehave when you're locked up in prison? And then they'll tell you all about, well, we got these great programs now that we didn't have then. Recidivism goes down to only 20%, 25%. Well, define recidivism. Well, they haven't committed crime in the last year. Well, why? Well, we've had them locked up part of the year, we had them on probation part of the year, and then the other part of the year, only 25% of them reoffended. If they ever come to you saying, "Mass incarceration and we gotta stop it," you look them in the eye and tell them that's not how the criminal justice system works in the United States of America. No one's mass incarcerated. Every individual gets their own attorney, free, if they can't afford them. Every individual has their individual day in court. No one is, quote, mass incarcerated. The next term you hear is, oh, this is low-level, nonviolent criminals. You know, it's just getting like the drug users out of the state prison system. How many drug users do you imagine is in the state prison system? Almost zero. Yeah, there may be a few that have tipped their probation for other burglaries or thefts with the possession of a drug and got sent back for a violation of probation. But we have a forgiving system. We have diversion programs. We have pre-arrest diversion programs. We have mental health programs. We have veterans courts. So when they come to you and tell you, we're just locking up everybody, that's not true. But what we are locking up is the habituals, the troublemakers, the real troublemakers. Ladies and gentlemen, they want to go back to the way it was. I was here when we did it the way it was, and the felons owned Florida. So what changed? Why did we change and go a different way? Europe started giving travel warnings about coming to Florida on vacation because 17 tourists from Europe were murdered. They were murdered because they couldn't stop in a rest area in a rental car without being shot. And yet those of you remember those days. But you know what the problem is? When that occurred and it became an economic issue, never mind the fact they've been slaughtering Floridians forever, it changed the law. The legislature finally did a good thing. And in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, the crime tipped and it went down and it went down and it went down. Crime's at a 47-year low in Polk County, a 48-year low in Florida. We're 40% less likely to be a victim of crime in Polk County than we are in state, but our statewide crime's down. Not one person in the legislature, not one person in the governor's office was in the system when felons own Florida. So they have no institutional knowledge. They're in total denial. And it feels good to be nice to people. I like to be nice to people. But it doesn't feel good to me to let felons out. Let me give you a classic example. A felon got life in prison over in Tampa. You probably watched it over the evening news. And the courts overturned that, went back to the state attorney because of some procedural errors. Rather than hit this guy hard again, the state attorney over there, which is known as, we're too hard on criminals in Florida, state attorney negotiated his out of sentence that let the guy out of prison. I forget now from last night because all the numbers, 4 weeks or 4 months after he got out, he carjacked and killed a 68-year-old man. There's your sign. Had he been locked up like we put him in prison about 16 or 17 years ago for being a mean, terrible criminal, that man would be alive and well and with his family today. So do not buy in to all of that stuff they're trying to teach us or tell us. Because I can tell you from the bottom of my heart, I believe in pre-arrest diversion. I believe in diversions. I believe in drug courts. I believe in helping those that are addicted to drugs. But I don't believe in letting the guy who's bringing heroin, methamphetamine, and cocaine in here by the kilo to infect our society, that they should get out of jail, and we should label that a low-level crime. That move is active and afoot. And the mayor knows that. He's in my Sheriff's Advisory Council, and I appreciate that, Mayor. We're making a positive difference in this community, and you're safe. But why? I had to put you on notice about that because we're all busy in our lives. But ladies and gentlemen, you need in a spare moment to look up the legislators here, and more importantly, the decision makers in the House and the Senate, and there's not that many of them that drive the train. Send them a short note. Don't buy into Senator Brandis's propaganda. We don't want the felons to own Florida, and we don't want people to needlessly die like they did the other day because they shortened the sentence, rather than go through the effort to keep that really bad guy in prison. So this system is forgiving, but when it identifies that really bad person doing really bad things, we lock people up for a long time, and you know what? They can give me all this other data that they want, but I have never seen one felon locked up in prison, robbing you, breaking into your house, stealing your car, taking your pocketbook from you in the parking lot. That stuff doesn't happen anymore. But back in the day, we were working the guys snatching ladies' pocketbooks and dragging them down through the shopping center. I used to say Publix parking lot. My son works here and says, I wish you'd get Publix a break. That was a normal occurrence. Robbing convenience stores at nights with guns used to be a normal occurrence. And those of you who are old timers around here, remember that. I should say senior timers. I'm an old timer. I agree with helping folks. I'll lead in that effort. Don't let them pull the cornerstones out from under what got us and keeps this very, very low crime rate. So how do we create this partnership, and what's the difference? So you have these good laws. You have a professional law enforcement agency, the sheriff's office, and we're supported by great police departments throughout this county. And I can tell you, your police department in Lake Wells, with Chris Velasquez as the chief, is as good as it gets. He's the real deal. When you have city commissions and county commissions that recognize if you don't have public safety, nothing else matters. When you look and see these big cities, and if you ever are wavering, go say, do we really want to do it like they do it in Chicago and Baltimore and Los Angeles? Do we really want that here because it's our choice? Then come back and let's talk some more. So how do we do it? The media. Law enforcement used to fight with the media because we thought that was what we were supposed to do. They're supposed to hate us, we're supposed to hate them. And if you watch even the news, I've had to quit, by the way. I used to be a news junkie. I don't watch it anymore. Unless there was an interesting topic like shooters, and I don't have a chance to get to all of that today, but we'll touch on it. This is a wonderful country. We don't hate each other. I don't hate the media. They don't hate me. And when we work together, we keep the community safe. So we changed our philosophy with how we deal with traditional media. Now we have social media. Excuse me. I'm getting over an upper respiratory infection. And I'm feeling much better, by the way. Even though it doesn't sound like it at moments. When I look at social media, and you understand that we have 270,000 likes on Facebook. We reached last year 30 million on Facebook alone. 30 million. You can tell a message. We have 84,000 followers on Twitter. 84,000. You know how powerful that is? If you're not hooked into our social media, you get the news at the same time the news media gets the news, but you don't get it filtered. You get it straight and unvarnished from me. In fact, if you go hurry up and do Facebook, you can watch me again, because I'm going to do a press conference on Facebook Live in a little while this morning. And I'm going to badmouth some folks, and a couple of them own a beauty and barbershop here in Lake Wells, Florida. And they, by the way, the head of this organized group I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. It's kind of a statewide operation. It started in Lake Wells with some Lake Wells folks. But if you don't get on Facebook, you're not going to know anymore. That's the TV. Let me talk about Twitter. So you have Twitter. We have a robbery. Lake Wells has a robbery. Instantly, we can say, hey, if you see a white car with a white dude wearing a red shirt and a green cap driving down the road, let us know. He just robbed a bank in Lake Wells. It buzzes immediately to your phone. Now, you're driving on the road looking at your phone like everybody does, and they're not supposed to. And you go to yourself, well, that dude goes right there. You can't miss a guy. A white guy in a white collar with a red shirt and a green hat. You just can't miss him. That quick, you dial 911 and say, I'm following the guy on Highway 60 towards Bartow. You know why? He's on his way to Juanita. So we're going to go down and meet him and welcome him to this metropolis of Juanita, because we can talk to 84,000 people real time right now. So every time we put someone out on Facebook or Twitter, almost without exception, we get leads within the first 24 hours. It works. We caught a dude out of Tampa stealing honey here in Lake Wells.
Yeah.
There's something suspicious. We still haven't identified those other two yet, and I want those rascals locked up so bad I can't stand it. Because to me, that's an assault on our community. When we have a community where the people feel so comfortable to say, hey, here's my product, just put the money in there and take your stuff. And then somebody who puts $5 in there and takes $400 worth of honey. You know, what we really ought to do is give him that honey. We ought to set him in a room and say, you can leave when you eat it all. But then, once again, that's probably why I'm the sheriff instead of the legislature. I don't think I don't think people ought to take advantage of us. We all go to work, pay taxes, behave, take care of our children. Right is right, wrong is wrong. We follow rules, at least most of the time. I followed all the rules getting here this morning. I drove in the vicinity of the speed limit. You only have to leave Lakeland at 4 o'clock in the morning to get here for a 7 o'clock presentation. Okay, so when you tie the community, social media, traditional media, here's what happens. The community, the people in this community are totally awesome. They want to help. They want to do better. We all do. And we hear about that. So we lock up bad guys. But that's not enough just to get them locked up. What are we going to do with them? We have, now understand that the county jail, the average is like 28 to 34 days. All right? So we don't have them all. But we have faith-based dorms and faith-based teachings, and we have programs. We have GED programs and prep programs. We show educational TV, how to behave, how to anger management, control your anger with anger management. We do all of that because we care. We see a lot of success stories. We will never, ever, ever, ever give up. Those that are addicted to drugs, we want to help them. Nobody wants to lock them up in prison. We want to lock them up in a program where they can get help. So does it work? It works. You know, when you talk to people we have a captive audience. They pay attention. You know why? Because they don't have anything else to do. We're seeing successes even short-term in the county jail. And how do we do that? The people from our community with different houses of worship come in, donate their time and their resources to work with our community that's locked up. and it works. So as I close today, I want to talk about these active shooters. These people are nuts, okay? They're not just criminals, they're nuts. They are off the chain, crazy. So I hear gun control, and I'm not gonna get into political debate other than to say, if you think making a rule and taking good people's guns is gonna stop these nuts, you are totally wrong. They're nuts. I can tell you if an active shooter arrived at Frostproof High School, I could empty that South County jail, give every one of those criminals in there a gun, and say they're shooting at the kids. 90% of them would run down there with a gun in hand and help us fight the active shooter. Now, they wouldn't come back to jail or give us our gun back. But they would go down there and do something about it. You could ask the majority of the murderers that I got locked up in the jail now, in their demented mind, the reason they killed somebody is they needed it, okay? It was a family deal, it was a drug deal going bad, or it was an accident during a robbery, okay? Those murderers we got locked up in the jail, if you let them out and gave them a gun today, they may kill somebody, but they're not gonna be an active shooter. You're not gonna go shoot kids. That's not who they are. But we gotta see something, we gotta hear something, we gotta say something. I've studied these active shooters way back from Paducah, Kentucky, and Columbine. The overwhelming percentage of it gives signs in advance to family, to friends, to associates, to brag on social media. Nobody wants to get them in trouble. Everybody's in denial. I didn't mean it. He's been crazy all his life. He said this stuff all his life.